just to give you all a little bit of a recap of what we've done so far, Swami is described as Gita Bodhakaya Namaha. Means we salute Swami who uh, in our lifetime gave us this opportunity to directly understand the Gita as he had taught it to Arjuna. So to a large extent, uh, you and I can feel very happy that we have the Gita, its commentary from Swami himself, and it's unadulterated, it's pure, and as we may struggle at times to navigate through 18 chapters and 700 verses, Swami gives us that beautiful assurance that no spiritual effort is a waste. Even if we cannot make it and come away with a clear and complete understanding of the Gita, doesn't matter. There is a lot of hope in the Gita. And there are a lot of other things apart from just giving us hope. There is an unequivocal explanation about karma, about the fact that souls come into the world, perform action, and there is this constant opportunity placed in front of us to perform action well, as we all know it, with passion, with excitement, with commitment. But the Gita takes this whole idea one level higher. And that is why this whole concept of NATO, as I love to use that acronym, not attached to outcomes, that's a huge opportunity for us. But we don't have to look for clarity. How do I know NATO? It's all very well. That's what Arjuna also did. Some of these things are discovered through self-inquiry. And from within, the answer will bubble up. It's not a question of tricks and techniques and methods. It's more related to pure intention. And how does pure intention come? When there is a lot of trust, when there is huge and complete trust in the Sadguru, then that purity of intent automatically starts arising and questions subside. And that is one thing I wanted to share with you. I was so many times in the interview room with Swami, sometimes group interviews, sometimes private interviews. And Swami he was the most democratic of teachers. And he always, after a few minutes had elapsed when he had taught something, because he was constantly teaching. There was never an occasion where he was not teaching. He just told a story for fun. He made us hold our stomachs in laughter. But soon or within that time, excuse me, the teaching was embedded or would follow. But Swami always made it a point to say, do you boys have any doubts? Do you have any questions? And you can imagine, if you just step out of the interview room, there are thousands of devotees waiting, especially on birthday, Guru Purnima and other days, Christmas. You would think, oh, who is this Swami? Do we know him? Does he belong to us? Can we, like we say, have that apnapan? In Hindi, we say apnapan, and sometimes, therefore, you feel nice that, oh, you have Swami captive in the confines of your altar, and you can say, oh, this is my Sai Baba. But we would really be shell shocked when on the one hand we had Swami captive in a 10 by 10 interview room, and Swami sitting there and making us laugh, and we were so happy. 2.5 hours had passed sometimes, and Swami was not talking about getting up. And the moment he would step out, we would be in a very different situation and think, oh my God, who is Swami? What is our relationship with him? And these moments, sometimes I think are more important. When I cogitate, when I meditate on these learnings, they make me realize that we were given very easily and we were supremely blessed. Nobody can take that blessing away from our lives. And it is not about any pride or arrogance, because it was given. It was given. And what we have to do is, instead of being stuck with this whole idea that why was it given? Did I deserve it? Excuse me. Just enjoy that, immerse ourselves in that. And then coming back to this point, that when Swami asked us, do you boys have any doubts? Today, when I think I'm sitting here, and sometimes I think I wish I had asked Swami that, but in the presence of the Master, there were very few, if any, doubts. There were very few, if any, questions. Because what question could arise when the embodiment of all power, in the embodiment of all the forces, when the embodiment of all goodness was sitting in front of you? And though we as small boys, adolescents, may not have fully understood it from the brain or the mind or the head, we definitely got the point in the heart. So Swami is that, and that reverence, that love for the Master, that is the great opportunity of the Gita, which is constantly being taught through the relationship. So you have the jnana of the various verses, right? So we say that there is chapter 5 Karma Sannyas Yoga, chapter 6 Dhyana Yoga, and then it becomes Jnana Vijnana Yoga in chapter 7, which we spoke about a lot the last time. And then we started to touch on the next one, which is Akshar Brahma Yoga, or the yoga of the eternal God. Who is this cosmic Lord? And Krishna describes it that there are 10 cycles of the 4 yugas in the waking day of Brahma. In one waking day of Brahma, there are 10 into 4. So if there are 4 yugas, Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, Kali Yug. And then Krishna says there are 10 such cycles. So recently, there were a lot of WhatsApp messages which said 3227 BC, 20th July, just 5 days back, is what Swami had said is the birth date of Sri Krishna. And this is there even I remember as a child reading this in summer showers in Vrindavan, I think. In 79, I think he had spoken this, that Krishna was born in 3227 BC on 20th July. So if you go to now think that 10 cycles of 4 yugas is one waking day of Lord Brahma. And Sri Krishna says that is the manifest creation. And then equal duration is the unmanifest duration. So 10 into 4 and 10 into 4. So that long duration. So just throw a number. We may be completely off the mark, but human beings, we always like to estimate, right? If you see a nice car on the road, you'll ask your wife, hey, do you think that would be about worth around $70,000? That's our habit, right? Similarly, on the spiritual path, we say, hey, throw a number. Do you think I'm halfway through to God realization? So this is how we tend to talk. That's how our brains function. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if you throw a number, these 10 into 4 yugas, let's say that the waking day of Brahma is at the minimum, given that 3227 BC is 3200 years back of Krishna, that is Dwapar Yuga. So let's say the 4 yugas are, say, 12,000 or 15,000 years. So 10 cycles, that's 150,000 years. That's the waking day of Brahma. And then there is the night of Brahma. So 150 into 2, 300,000 years. Now, what is the purpose? So you may say, hey, where are you taking us? And that's what I'm also asking you. Where is Sri Krishna taking us? Why is he befuddling us, confusing us with all these types of things? If I ask you all, where were you on 7/25/2019? You will all start scratching your heads. Some of you may be wise to open your Google Drive or your Yahoo Mail or some other mail to see what mails were exchanged on that day. For 1 year's duration, the human mind, such a puny little thing, is unable to recollect what you did even 1 minute of that day. Forget what you did for the whole waking hours. So why is Sri Krishna taking us into such a concept which none of us can even fathom? And when I thought about this during this week as I was preparing to talk to you, the one very important thing that emerges in my mind is that Sri Krishna, Swami, they're all talking about the otherworldliness of our lives. Human beings, we have got so terribly caught up in the immediate activities, in the importance of immediate things, that we forget the larger reality of life. We are constantly losing the woods for the trees. We are constantly losing spirituality for the verse. You and I think that, oh, if we can understand this one verse of the Gita, we got spirituality. What is spirituality? We think that singing a song well in the center or rushing to the Sai center to accomplish one activity of seva is the equivalent or the substitute for God realization. And to my mind, that is the reason why Sri Krishna is on the one hand giving himself as the opportunity. That single body of Sri Krishna is the portal to escape, to ennoble ourselves. And on the other hand, he's throwing at us this whole concept of 300,000 years and our puny lifespan of 60, 80, 100 years. So every time we think, oh, COVID may affect us and we may die, look at the news. There are so many hundreds of thousands of people dead. There are so many millions affected. And rather than be caught up with the with the self-importance that we attach to our bodies, we should give thanks and say, oh Swami, what grace that today I am alive, that today I am here. I'm listening to this session where your glory is being sung. Let me with all heart sing your glory. And on that note, I will share with you a couple of the verses that I have identified today for us to sing. One is from the previous chapter, which is Akshar Brahma Yoga, where Krishna says, therefore always remember me and do your duty, right? And we discussed this. Why is this important? Because at the time of death, last time we discussed, at the time of death, if you chant the Akshar Brahma, that is Om, 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 then with your mind and intellect surrendered, you will definitely attain me. Now moving on to chapter 9, the beauty of chapter 9, and I'll tell you, see, you have to excite yourself. We are so excited when you say a celebrity is coming to town. They say that President Trump is coming to RTI, Research Triangle. That creates a little bit of excitement, right? You may not belong to the Republican Party, or you may, but that excites you. Why do we feel this excitement? Because there is interest in those matters. It's as simple as that. Why did some of us choose to join Swami's college? Because there was plenty of his grace. Because we got excited. There were other people I know who said, you know what? I'm waiting for another 5 years when my flat in Mumbai becomes worth 1 crore. Then I will sell it and go to Parthi. And then I live happily ever after. And in the meanwhile, Swami's avatar left the earth. Not any criticism for anybody. What does it imply? If you and I have interest in any matter, if you and I are truly, sincerely interested in the meaning of the Gita, in the power of the Gita to transform us, in the Sai avatar and our relationship with him, that's all we need. We don't need techniques. We don't need pranayam. We don't need the 700 shlokas of the Gita. We just need to be greatly inspired by one thing. And that Swami used to tell us many times in the interview. I don't need, if you have to light a forest fire, you don't buy 700 boxes of matchsticks. You don't even need to have 700 matchsticks. How much do you need to light one forest fire? 1 million trees to be set ablaze. What do you need? One matchstick. And what's the other thing you need? Dry fodder. The leaves should not be wet. What does that imply? The readiness of our minds. Our mind should not be wet with, soaked in the worldliness and the sensuality. So that is the whole secret of the Gita. The one matchstick of jnana, that one word of Swami, and our receptivity. And same thing Swami used to often tell us. Many people say, oh, we are not attracted by the Sai avatar. I am a great magnet. Swami used to put his hands up like that. Nenu pedda magnet ra, he used to say, I am a great magnet. But many people are not getting attracted and they blame that this magnet is powerless. Why is this magnet powerless? Because the small iron filing is covered with dust. So this Gita is that opportunity to remove the dust from the iron filings who we are. Then that great Sai magnet will just pull us. And not, what happens when the magnet pulls the iron filing? You just go and bang, you unite with him. And that's why, what is this unity? That is in every one of the 18 chapters of the Gita, the word unity is there. What is that word unity? I want to ask all of you. Take the chat button now and tell me, what is that word unity? Where is it coming in each of the chapters of the Gita? Can you take a stab at that? Let me see how attentive you are all being. Let me see some things coming up on the chat so I know that the Saturday morning is being spent fruitfully. Okay. Looks like you all are still a little bit inert. So the word yoga in the Gita, that implies union. That word yoga says that here is the opportunity. Through this chapter, Swami is going to tell you, thank you Archana, yoga is not standing on your head and doing Shirshasana and having the blood flow in the opposite direction. Each chapter of the Gita is named yoga. Vibhuti yoga, Vishada yoga, Jnana Vijnana yoga. And finally, brothers, sisters, just so that I keep myself on track, I'm going to bring you back to what I wanted to speak about, which is this, what we are going to talk about today is called Raja Yoga. And it's a fascinating thing. I want to excite you because Raja Vidya Yoga is the name of the chapter. And why is it called Raja Vidya? Because truly today we are going to talk about a confidential knowledge. What's another word for confidential? Come on, let me see some things coming up in the chat. What is the other word for confidential? Secret. Secret. So Swami is giving us the secret of spirituality. And Swami in the summer course once has said that what is so secret about this yoga? This yoga, this chapter is the 9th chapter. So 8 chapters precede it. And then how many chapters are yet to come? 9 more chapters have to come. So this chapter is really in the center and it is called Raja Vidya Yoga. It is the truly secret yoga of the Gita. And what is one of the verses that we have chosen to talk about today? Avajananti mam mudam manushim tanu mahashritam. When I manifest, when I take a personal form, when I come down as the avatar, many people are deluded. And you know what Krishna says in the first verse of this chapter to Arjuna? I'm going to tell you the confidential secret of spirituality, Arjuna, because you are not envious of me. Let us take a minute and say, What does Sri Krishna mean to tell Arjuna? Arjuna was merely mortal. He already was worshipping Sri Krishna and he was accepting the Gita and the guidance from. Why did Krishna say, "O Arjuna, because you are not envious of me"? Many people, when they first see or saw Sri Satya Sai Baba, said, "Hey, how is this man who is merely mortal taking credit for all these things?" Right? And I'm going to play one video for you all to tell you how many people mistook that the Sai on earth is taking credit for superlative things. I want you to also enjoy this video and see what Swami is saying in this video. Fascinating video it is.
సూర్యుండు ఒక బ్రహ్మ చుక్కలన్నీయు బ్రహ్మ సూర్యుండు ఒక బ్రహ్మ చంద్రుడన్నను బ్రహ్మ జలము బ్రహ్మ స్వర్గమన్నను బ్రహ్మ వైకుంఠమది బ్రహ్మ తల్లియు బ్రహ్మయే తండ్రి బ్రహ్మ భాగ్యం వది బ్రహ్మ వాలక్ష్యమది బ్రహ్మ జీవించుటది బ్రహ్మ జీవి బ్రహ్మ పుట్టించునది బ్రహ్మ పోషించునది బ్రహ్మ పుట్టించునది బ్రహ్మ పోషించునది బ్రహ్మ గిట్టించునది బ్రహ్మ గృహిణి బ్రహ్మ కాలమంతయు బ్రహ్మ కాలంబు బ్రహ్మ ప్రకృతి అంతయు బ్రహ్మ మన ప్రేమ బ్రహ్మ సర్వమును బ్రహ్మ ఈ సభయు బ్రహ్మ సత్యమును తెలుపునట్టి ఈ సాయి బ్రహ్మ ఇంతకంటెను వేరెత్తి ఎరుగపరతు సాధు సద్గుణగణ్యులవు సభ్యులారా సాధు సద్గుణగణ్యులవు సభ్యులారా
I know that was a very soul thrilling video, and words that follow are, so hollow compared to what we just saw. And I want to ask you to come back to this world, and each one of you to try to write in the chat window for me, what is it that you felt very wonderful and inspired by? I, for instance, also loved the sitar music. It was so appropriate, but I loved many other things in that video. All of you take a second to tell me what you know the theme, and you feel free to write what you felt. But let me see a lot of responses coming up on this. I'm sure this touched your soul. What is it that Swami is telling us, and what appealed to you a lot? Okay. Thank you, Ramki. Wonderful. Somebody liked the music. Gautamji liked the music. Everything is God. What else? There were a lot of words as well. Swami's voice, rendering it, is the voice of God. Swami's declaration, the feeling of awe. How come nobody's commenting on the butterfly being born, or the little puppies suckling the mother? What else did you all see and notice? What were you inspired by? Okay, Prabhakar uncle, thank you. You know what I'm doing? I'm misleading you all so that I can give you the answer. Truth of creation, wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you all for participating. So the thing in that video, brothers and sisters, was the fact that Sai, Sri Satya Sai Baba, was declaring, he was building up to a climax, that fruits, flowers, earth, stars, sun is Brahman. Then he said, this Sabha is Brahman. This gathering is Brahman. What does that do to you and me? It takes you away from the connectedness with your family, with your career, with your leisure activities, with your concerns, with your immediate concerns and tomorrow's concerns. And it throws at you, first conceptually, verbally, and then the blessing that all of you are Brahman. But wait, I'm not done. Finally tells you the thing that is of greatest value to you and me as Sai devotees. It says, Swami says, I am Brahman. Sri Satya Sai Baba is Brahman. It is going to be a long time before you and I can realize, believe that you are the seer, not the seen. You are the Kshetra, not the Kshetra. You and I are constantly in the field of consciousness. You and I are not able to extricate ourselves from events, from people, from cravings, from desires, from happenings. We are constantly unable to see ourselves as the creator. But at least we can start by acknowledging that we met no one less than the great creator himself. That is the meaning of that verse. And I'll take you back to the word, to the excuse me, to what Swami is saying there. 1 second. So in this verse of the Gita, which you can now see, when I descend in my personal form, Shri Krishna says, I come down personally. They do not know my divinity. And if you see why he tells Arjuna in the beginning of this chapter, go and read it. I don't have time to show it to you now. But he tells Arjuna, Arjuna, because you are not envious of me, I'll tell you this verse. He says, idam Shri Bhagwan uvacha idam tu te gruhatam pravashyam yan suvaye. Because you are not envious of me, therefore I shall reveal to you the most secret yoga. So what does this envy mean? This envy is the envy of people who saw the glory of the Sai avatar and tore it down. They could not accept it. The same thing that a lot of people did to Jesus Christ when he said, I am the way and I am the path. And what did they do to him? They couldn't accept it. Annas and Caiaphas, who were the ex-high priest and the high priest of the Jerusalem temple, decided to crucify Christ. And Swami, this is the biggest challenge that human beings have. And that's what Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna. Because you are not envious of me, because you do not scorn me, because you accept me, therefore I shall give you the secret. And that is the first thing that I told you when we started this discussion today, that as Sai students, when he sat in front of him, we didn't have doubts. We had no questions. Mostly when Swami asked us, hey, what are your doubts? We were lost in the bliss of his presence. We were enamored. We were overawed. We were thrilled. We forgot our concerns. We forgot our degrees. One of the first things that I did in my 11th grade was my father had given me big textbooks to study, entrance exams. After my 12th, the first thing that I did, I physically threw those textbooks in the garbage can. For the worldly person, they would have said, oh, Ravi, but you could have become a doctor. See, COVID needs doctors. You could have worked in Swami's hospitals. None of that mattered. To the person who has been touched by the divine love, by one ray of the love, that is the power of the love. It is not the power of the devotee. The Gopikas were not special people, but just because the ray of that sun of devotion fell on the Gopikas, they were maddened. While they served their husband, they pressed the husband's feet, their mind was on Krishna. That is what happened to us. And we cannot take any credit for it. But we have to desire to feel, oh Swami, this iron filing that I am, it still has lot of rust of worldliness on me. Oh Swami, please make me feel that you are that Brahman. And grab me, oh powerful magnet, grab me. Let me come stick to you, for then I'll be released. And then, going further in the same chapter, Raja Vidya Yoga, Sri Krishna explains a verse which all of you know. Finally, we are coming to verses which we can recognize and chant more easily. Why? Because Swami spoke about them many times in his discourses. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana parupasyate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshemam vahamya. Very wonderful verse and very controversial verse. And I'm going to give you all some exercise. So before that, let me give you the meaning. There are those who always think of me. Ananya. Ananya means always. Chintayanto mam. We all know chinta is worry. We are all worried. Oh, when will my son get married? Oh, when will my son join a good college? Oh, my son is now in college, but he's not keeping well. Oh, my son is now in college, but I miss him. Oh, my daughter has to find a good husband. This chinta, you and I are so familiar with. Forget about all those big things. If I have to open the Zoom session and I'm struggling with it, chinta, I'm not able to start the Zoom session and people are waiting with me on the chinta dogs the mind. That is the hallmark of the mind. But we love the mind. We love this chinta. And while we pray, Swami, release me from the worries, actually we drive our sucker. What would we do without this chinta? But those great devotees who have that lack of worldliness, they are able to realize that I don't want to dwell in this chinta. I will dwell in the chinta of Sai. Ananyas chintayanto mam. He who turns this chinta from worry about small, petty, constantly sensual and worldly matters to me. He who swivels, who consciously turns the mind and its attention to me. Ananyas chintayantu mam te jana paryupasite. That person, I forever see to it that they never lack. And then, yogakshemam vahamyaham. I preserve and foster them in such a way that they never need. But don't mistake Sri Krishna saying that I give them huge bank balances and I take away all problems from them. No. Sri Krishna is very careful. He always says, I'll give you how much you need. And you may not like it or you may like it. You may crave or you may not crave. You may have an ascetic nature or you may have a worldly nature. But if you fully turn your attention exclusively to Sai, he will give you how much you need. And Swami gave us many hints about this in the interview room. Why did he talk about the fact that the shoe has to fit the foot correctly? If it is too loose, the shoe will keep slipping off as you walk. If the shoe is too tight, you'll get shoe bites. And he always said that because he wanted us to realize that amongst us, those who are truly absorbed in Sai, you may not have plenty, but you will definitely not be lacking. You will have enough for your son's education. You will have enough so that you don't have to worry about your retirement. You don't have to put your mind, your chinta will not have to turn to your bank balance. But you will not have more than you need. We note that point. And then one day I'll tell you, Swami told us a beautiful story about this Ananyas Chintayanto Mam. That will relax all of you as well. So Swami told us in the interview room one day that a great Gita Pandit, great Sanskrit Pandit, was one day chanting the Gita and expounding on the Gita verses. And he was a great Sanskrit Pandit. Now the king who was there and the courtiers were listening to him in rapt attention. And then suddenly, when this verse came, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Parupasate Tesham Nitya Bhuttanam Yoga Kshemam Bhamyam. The king who was seated up there in the throne started shaking his head and showed his displeasure. Now, as is the wont of all defensive people, this Pandit who had great laurels and prizes and awards, he was very well known across many lands. He became defensive and he started expounding more and more on the meaning of the words and the Sanskrit meaning, etc., etc. But the king kept on shaking his head. And I want to ask you all to think what was the reason why the king was shaking his head. And then this Pandit finally is so frustrated that his knowledge is not impressing the king. The king tells him, "Oh great Pandit, thank you for spending so much time, but please go home and think about why I feel you have not been able to explain this verse of the Gita well enough. And please come back tomorrow and give me the correct interpretation of this verse." Now this Pandit, whose ego and arrogance is hurt, is like a wounded tiger. He goes home, and unlike every day when he reached home, he would keep the Gita and cover it with a beautiful cloth, put a flower on it, and then bow to it, and then go about his activities. That day, carelessly, he casts away the book on the bed, and he goes and lies down. Now, as most of you know, the men are sometimes more arrogant. I'm not saying always. And the women are very perceptive. And his wife, who's cutting vegetables and frying some pakoras for him as a snack when he comes home, tells him, recognizing that he's upset, says, "What happened to you? You are always so happy when you come back. Didn't the king today bless you with more gold coins?" And he doesn't answer. He's grumpy. And then she comes and she brings those snacks for him and a cup of water. Tell me what happened. I can see that you're upset. Say, "No, what do you know? Don't tell me anything. Don't talk to me. I want to think about it." And try to think how you and I are so much like this Pandit. And then she says, no, tell me. And then he abuses her. He says, "What do you know? You are just good for the kitchen. What else do you know? You only know how to change the diapers and cut the vegetables and, clean the house. What are you going to be? Why should I tell you?" He says, okay, tell me. I may be able to help you." Then he tells her that the king is very unhappy And try as he may, he could not convince the king that the meaning of this verse is appropriate. So she tells him, tell me which verse. So how do you know the Gita? Say, but little bit I have understood, no Baba, by hearing you chant. I may have understood. Okay. And he chants this verse for her. And when she hears it, she tells him, truly the king was right. Dear husband, the king was right. You have really not understood the meaning of this verse. And then he says, seriously, you are able to tell me that? And you are also joining forces with the king? Don't we do that many times when our wife tells us that and say, oh, you are also joining forces with the president of the Sai Center, or you are also joining forces with my boss? We do that, right? We don't want true feedback. But in this case, his wife tells him, if you really had understood the meaning of this verse, why would you seek the pleasure of the king? Why would you even go to the king? Yoga kshemam vahamyaham. And did you put your mind in exclusive absorption? Did you surrender to the Lord completely? No. The first thing you entered the king's court, you opened the Gita, your mind was, oh, yesterday the king gave me so many gold coins. Today, how many gold coins is going to come from my explanation of the Gita? And then this Pandit is illuminated with true self-knowledge. And next morning, he doesn't even go to the court, Swami says. And then he keeps on studying the Gita, and great joy and bliss start arising in his heart. And then this king next morning is very upset that he had ordered the Pandit to come, and he says, sends a minister, and the Pandit says, no, I'm not going to come to the king's court. Say, why? Said, because I have understood the true meaning of the Gita. Said, but come and explain it to the king and then you'll get gold coins. Said, I don't need any gold coins. By loving Krishna, I have understood him and I don't need to do anything. Now, you and I may think, what will happen if we start applying this? Should we stop going to office? So we stop going to work? But I want to ask you, did the Gopikas stop churning the milk and making butter? Did they stop serving their husbands? No, they did not. And I told you the last session, Hislop asked Swami, how do the Sai devotees put their mind on Swami? Swami, if they are making a PowerPoint presentation, they'll make mistakes. Swami said, they don't need to stop doing activities. In fact, in the Gita Vahini, it's so odd. Swami uses the word insane. In the translation, uses the word, the people who think of renouncing the world in search of God realization are insane. And what is the secret? How then do we turn our minds? Yoga Kshemam, how do we get that assurance from Swami that he will look after us, but he will look after us in the way he decides? Let's be clear about that. If you set a target for Swami, that Swami, this New York Times has published an article which says, I need $3 million with the net present value of the dollar to live out my retirement in the US. And if I live, assuming that here's a list of assumptions, I die at 97, then Swami, you need to give me $3 million to live out my retirement successfully. Is that Yogakshemam? That is not at all Yogakshemam. That breaks the whole idea of Yogakshemam. There is no assurance that you are tying Sri Krishna and Swami to, because first of all, you put 100 assumptions, not only of yourself, of New York Times also. You put lot of clauses, you put lot of conditions, then the first part of the verse is completely broken. That is exclusive and completely engaged in devotion to me, having 100% absorption to me. And brothers, sisters, this is very important for us. In this 1 hour on a Saturday, you and I are discussing such elevating thoughts. And why has Swami brought us to him? Out of some 7 or 9 billion people on this earth, Only, I'm pretty sure about the number being less than 20-30 million. Only 20-30 million people, give or take a few million, got to have this type of excitement, this type of conviction, this type of dreams. Imagine you're being visited by side dreams giving you guidance. You got interviews. Yesterday I was showing my son the video of Harish Mirpuri, how they donated money for the music college. And I was there in the mandir when Mirpuri came and told that his factory burned down in Indonesia. And Swami gave him full guidance how to work with the lawyers and all, sitting there in Puttaparthi. These types of help, that is Yogakshema. And see what Mirpuri and his son did for Swami. And don't think their life was smooth as went smooth. No, they had lot of challenges in their lives. So, but they accepted the challenges in their life, even after creating that music college, which stands as a testimony to their love for Swami. They didn't take away the challenges, but they accepted the challenges as, once you absorb yourself in Swami, who are you to say that, oh, but I believed in Swami and then still my wife is sick. Oh, I believed in Swami, but still my son didn't get an O grade. Oh, I went and put 20 coconuts on Venkateshwara temple here in Cary, but still, my colonoscopy report is showing some polyps. That is not that. And I don't say this with a easy and flippant way. No, this is as much as a challenge for me as for you. But that is where Krishna is leading us. That is where Swami is leading us. If you and I can be wholly absorbed, you and I can offer every activity to him, there is a huge opportunity to be happy hereafter. Do you and I here, this is what Swami is. This is from the Gita Vahini itself. I'll increase the size. All of you have to consider, this is from the Gita Vahini, Swami's own words. Which is more important, a happy life now or liberation from the circle of birth and death? Happy living is only of short duration. The joy of liberation is eternal and unshakable. And brothers, sisters, Swami is not going to make that decision for you. Swami is not going to come to you in a dream and say, hey, Dunapota, you are being dense. You are still choosing the world over me. Choose me, choose eternal glory, choose eternal happiness over this. He's not going to do that. That is the secret of this Raja Vidya Yoga. That choice is always given to you and me. When I was finishing my MBA, I've told this story many times. Suddenly, I who always wanted to stay with Swami, I threw my medical books. I suddenly, because of that Vishaya Vasana, attraction to the world, Swami kept on asking me, don't you want to serve in my hospital? I want to make you employee number 1. And Nanjundaya came, Professor Nanjundaya, Swami's own translator, came in the middle of the MBA class. I remember it was a communications class, called me out. He took permission from my teacher in MBA. Said, Swami is very concerned that you are hesitating. Imagine this avatar of avatars. Look at the crowd that was coming in to see him at birthday. And I was holding back. And then I was perplexed. I was sweating. But my mind was so powerful. It was not letting me commit. I could have told Professor Nanjundaya, no, sir, I am unequivocally committed. I have no hesitation. I didn't say that. That evening when I went to Mandir, Swami was waiting alone in the interview room. He called me. Khayal Das told me, go, Swami is waiting for you. A small boy. And Swami said, Aim Ramari, what is your nirnayam? What is your decision? And I was hesitant. And he gave the grace. That is this Raja Vidya Yoga. He gave the grace. Because I was sitting on the fence, I was foolish. But because I had made so many right decisions, I had prayed to him, I had worshipped him, I had cried for him maybe. He gave me that boon and he said, don't hesitate, Ra. I am giving you my agya, my command. That is what you and I have an opportunity to do. But don't think Ravi ka beda par ho gaya, he's fine, he's done. No. That was with regard to the hospital. I still have to make those decisions again and again and again every day. We have to choose blissful life ever after over happy life now. And brothers, sisters, how do I do that? Shri Krishna says, you don't have to even join the hospital. You don't even have to do any big thing. You don't have to leave Keri or Puttaparthi or any place and go to the forest. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati. Tadaham bhaktya, I'm not able to pronounce that. Pahamritam ashnami prayatmanam. Even if you offer to me with devotion just a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or okay, if you're not able to get leaf, flower, fruit also, definitely you have access to water. Even water I'm willing to accept. I delightfully partake of that article. So this is the how part of it. The previous part was what you need to do. You need to turn your mind on me unadulterated, unmixed. Only keep Sai in that single seat sofa, SSX, single seat sofa. Sri Satya Sai alone should sit there. Then your yoga kshemam is looked after. But how to do that? Take a leaf, take a flower, or if you don't have those things, offer just a little bit, one drop of water to me, but with great purity. And what is that great purity? Often we ourselves don't believe that we are greatly pure and we are doing it with purity. Believe that I'm doing it with pure intention. And then Swami has said, so that's what Sri Krishna said. But Swami has said, what does Sri Krishna mean when he says body, when he says leaf, flower, fruit and water? This leaf is nothing but our own bodies. So if you can use your own body in some seva, in some activity to help your neighbor, to help a person cross the road, that is offering the leaf. If you can fill your heart with pure love, good intention, and remove enmity, hatred, jealousy from the heart, because all feelings lie in the heart. They only manifest through the mind, but in the heart are all your emotions lying. That flower, if you can purify, if you can offer that pure flower to me, that is the offering of your heart. If you can purify your mind from all the dirt, all the Vishaya Vasana, which you pull through the 10 senses, the Jnanendriya and Karmendriya, that fruit of the purified mind, if you can offer to me. And finally, easiest of all, just take one YouTube video of Swami and cry. Last night, just before we all went to bed, somebody sent one picture of Swami in the white robe. I don't know. Maybe Swami was 83 at that time or 82. I looked at that picture and I said, oh my God, Swami, I could not stay with you after, even before 80th birthday, I left you. And seeing that picture of Swami after I had left him, I thought, oh my God, you alone single-handedly ran this whole mission. You looked at all of us to enable you, to help you, to support you, but even I left you and went away. And when I saw that picture, few drops of repentance came in my eyes. And that, brothers, sisters, not with any arrogance I'm telling you. In fact, I'm a sinner, therefore. I have let Swami down. But all of us have to have that self-analysis. Let's turn the torch of analysis on ourselves. Feel bad for what we could have done for Swami. Feel bad that even today we are not doing for Swami what he never demanded from us. Never did he even demand anything from us. But what is it that we can do? Not necessarily in some big action. Don't have to donate millions of dollars to Swami. But like that little boy in the school who washed his clothes himself and saved that 25 rupees that month and then gave Swami 4 months 25 rupees. He gave 100 rupees to Swami. And Swami took that envelope and walked around Darshan and opened it and told everybody, I got 100 rupees from this little boy. That little monkey who, unlike the big Hanuman, could not cross the ocean, or the little squirrel who with its tail flicked little bit of particles of sand on the bridge and said, I am also contributing to Sri Rama's mission. That purity, that self-belief, that love, that can come only if that love is there. And that binding, that trust, that feeling that, oh my God, that Sai Brahma, that video that you saw, you should not be envious of him. You should not challenge him. You should not think, how could Swami make that big statement that I am that Brahma who is in the stars? And because of that humility of Arjuna, Krishna shared this secret of Rajavidya. So if you and I never allow doubts, never allow scorn, never allow negative feelings for Swami, that's step number one. Step number two, try to purify our mind. Then the flower of the heart, the pure heart, we can offer to Swami. And then, brothers, sisters, you and I have to have no concern. Having put our mind fully on Swami, he will protect us. And then what will happen? Manmanabhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktvaevam matparayana atmanam matparayana. I'm so sorry, I'm messing up, but I don't have time to correct myself. Always think of me, be devoted to me, worship me, offer obeisance to me. Having dedicated your mind and body to me, you will certainly come. So with that, I will stop. This chapter 9, I really request all of you, go take some form of the Gita, read these verses, have somebody else chant it for you. But this Raja Vidya Yoga, with this very blissful verses of the importance of chanting the Gita so that it becomes a practice before the moment of death. And then try to get absorption. Use everything to remember Lord Sai. Because, see, if you try to remember Krishna, you may suddenly get a doubt. Hey, did he really wear a crown? Krishna was a cowherd. Did he put the peacock feather on the right side or left side? Was he holding the flute in the... But you don't get such doubts about Swami. Many of you have seen Swami, touched Swami, or you have heard of Swami. You have seen his videos. There is no beguiling the mind. The mind cannot but accept that the Sai Avatar came. He did all these great things. Fantastic things he did. So that makes it easier to dispel the doubts of the mind. Then as we get that full absorption, you and I will have our Yogakshemam completely looked after. With that, I'll stop, and maybe there is time for just one question if there is that question that you have. The last message that I see is Uncle Radu saying Brahman is everything. So Yala still trailing me. Let me know if you have any questions, brothers, sisters. I know it was a one-way talk, but I'm just hoping that it was meaningful and it will inspire you to think very deeply about Swami and create our own forms of bhakti for Swami. As a student, when I walked around, I had heard in one talk, Mr. Indulal Shah saying that don't just sing bhajans like that. If you sing Allah, try to think of some form of Kaaba or Muslims worshipping. If you say Krishna, bring Krishna's form to your mind. I had heard this talk once from him. So I spun it in my own way. What I did is, in Puttaparthi, every building, you go to West 7, West 8, West 9, North 1, North 2, everywhere there's a picture of Swami. Every floor, after that they started putting a picture of Swami every floor. What I did as one small way of turning the mind, imagine I was an adolescent, I was unmarried. And from every time I saw one picture of Swami, even if I was walking with a student or a friend or a lecturer or a Sai devotee, if I passed a picture of Swami or I saw it, I would mentally bow to that picture. If I had physically bowed, people would have thought, oh my God, this guy is a crazy chap. Anyway, a lot of people thought like that. But every time I saw a picture of Swami, I did not let it go untouched. I say, Swami, how can I pass you and not worship you? You are the most worship-worthy one. Having made that decision once in my life, I am never going to break that decision. If I see your photo, I am going to make it a point to give a pause in my thinking, to give a pause in my conversation. I'm going to bow to you, come what may. That became my trick or technique. We are all seeking these tricks and techniques, but the best trick or technique is your inner resolve. And that inner resolve arises from pure intent. The more you love Sai, the more you spend time on thinking of Sai, the more that cosmic consciousness, it will enter and influence and arise from within. And it won't have to come from books or outer compulsion. It will come from the inner driver. There will be an inner push to focus more and more on Swami. And I was telling my kids, see, it is every great master has said, Sarvam Dukkham, Sarvam Shanikam. How can you say that the world is not fun? I had so much fun going on that walk. I had so much fun watching that serial. We had so much pleasure, but I have to remember that the true joy, these are all passing and ephemeral joy. This is what we have to bring to our mind. What we are looking at is unsurpassable bliss. There is an unknown bliss which you and I haven't even got a taste of properly. Or maybe we got a part of that glimpse when we were with Swami. But so you and I are like a little fly sitting on a piece of cow dung and saying, oh, wow, what wonderful bliss I'm experiencing. Do we want to just keep on enjoying the little joys of this world? Or do we want to taste that unprecedented bliss, that inexorable love and bliss that we have experienced to small measure in the presence of Sai, and when we feel that love within us, when we remember it. So I see a few people thanking me. I want to thank you also for listening to me patiently. I am, after all, a young boy and a small boy, relatively inexperienced compared to all of you. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. And even though Swami kept me so close, I am really that, that iron, the piece of iron with lot of rust. But with his grace, he's constantly, every time I get some more rust on me, he's cleaning that rust off. And with these opportunities to sing his glory, because there are people like you who want to listen, my own consciousness is getting elevated. That is the story of the Sai devotees. We can many times elevate our consciousness through crying for him, through singing his glory. One day we will get that escape velocity to go into that level, into that zone where we will be permanently bound with him. And there will be no chance for us to fall back into worldliness. With that, I'm going to thank you all. And may Sai bless you all. Have a good rest of the weekend. Don't worry about trivial worldly matters which you read about in the news, such as COVID and other things. This fear that is generated by external events, feel that, acknowledge that. And when you feel that fear inside you, think that, oh, this is the fear coming on the potential loss of a job or a potential getting COVID infection, which I don't have today. Then what is the fear going to come when I am on my deathbed? And this is how Swami wants to train ourselves. So that, say, oh, I welcome these fears. These fears, let me feel them. So when I can feel this fear, then I know that when I have to manage and address and surmount the fear of death, then the name of the Lord, it's just not the name. You can't just chant the name of the Lord and get across, get beyond those fears. Chant the name of the Lord with deep love, with abiding devotion, with total absorption. Then even the fear of death, even when Lord Yama is standing in front of you, Yama will say, oh my God, my lasso and my dark bull, I have come with them, but this guy is not even afraid of me. His mind is so deeply soaked in at Sai's feet that the fear of death also doesn't touch him. Come on, I have to bow to this person. That is how Lord Yama should feel when he thinks about us. So why worry about small and trivial fears? Swami will take care of everything. But let's hitch our wagon onto him and deeply feel the love for Sai. With that, I will close. Thank you all and wish you all deep inner joy and deep bliss and unadulterated absorption in Swami. Jai Sai Ram. Thank
Sai
you.
Ram. Sai Ram.
Sai
Thank
Ram.
you, Swami, for this opportunity, and thank you, Ravi. This is so much to contemplate on, and this is such a beautiful topic. And with that, you're also adding all the experiences. It's making, even it's beautiful. Thank you again, and we're
Thank you,
looking
Shubha.
forward to the next session next Saturday at 11 o'clock. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.